And it's my absolute pleasure to introduce our speaker today, David Marrison, who is the Associate Professor at The Ohio State University and here at our local Extension office. And David has presented not only to our Leadership Ashtabula County group for, oh gosh, maybe well over 15 years. I have 18 years right now, and I usually hear his presentation twice a year, and every year learn something new. And he's been an outstanding resource. I know that many of us here in this room, both as an educational resource, as a professional resource, and we really appreciate him taking the time to be here today with some important updates. David?
Morning. Can you hear me okay? Usually I'm not tethered to a podium, so I'm going to have to work standing here. But I'd like to thank you for having me here to talk about Ashtabula County agriculture. I'm born and raised a product of our agriculture industry here, so I'm very, very pleased to be back and have been pleased to be back for 18 years working for our industry. So really today, in the short time that we have, I want to share a little bit about OSU Extension, talk about Ashtabula County agriculture, and then I think the really cool thing is to look at what's coming ahead as far as agriculture. And we know, of course, that will change, but there are some interesting things happening out there that are challenging farmers, as well as there's some opportunities out there that will make us more productive as we move to the future. Of course, this is how we look at the Extension office all year with the Soil and Water Conservation District, except for this year, I think it's the highest snow piles that we've ever had there. And our issue simply for OSU Extension, and we're closing in on our 100th year birthday and our 100th year anniversary here in Ashtabula County, is basically to help people improve their lives through the use of scientific knowledge, using the university system. And I mentioned about a birthday, and in 1914, the Smith-Lever Act started OSU Extension. In fact, it started Extension across the United States. And our first agriculture county agent was hired on July 1st of 1917. So Extension has been functioning in the 88 counties across Ohio for almost 100 years. And of course, we owe that relationship in a three-part relationship to our federal partners, our state partners, as well as our county commissioners. When we started Extension, that was a third, and a third, as far as who we get our dollars from. And I know our three county commissioners are here, so if they would stand up, I just want to say thank you to the county commissioners and to the county commissioners and to all those county commissioners that are before them for their support of Extension for almost 100 years. And of course, our funding, it's changed. It used to come a third from the federal, a third from the state partnership, and a third from the county commissioners. And that allows us to keep our unbiased approach of helping our clientele here in Ashtabula County. Now, of course, as with any government agency or any business, we've looked at other funding streams. And the two big ones that we've added, where it's now about 20% from each, is grants and donations, as well as cost recovery through program fees. Of course, we have our 4 program areas. I'm here specifically to talk about agriculture, but we're very proud of our 4-H program here in the county, as well as the work that we're doing in the family nutrition program through SNAP education, through our local school systems, through the Family Consumer Sciences program. And I would be remiss if we didn't look back and just say thank you to those. We've had a long history here in Ashtabula County as far as when you're hired here to work for agriculture. Maybe it's because no one else will move to Ashtabula County because of our weather. But really, there's only been 7 of us that have worked here in Ashtabula County, and I'm very pleased that there's 3 of us in the room today. So John Parker, if you'll stand up, and Lanny Anderson would stand up just to be recognized. You can see that Lanny was our longest tenured extension agent or county agent for agriculture for 30 years, and that is my goal and my role is to, I think Lanny, we joked about me signing a 30-year contract, and so I got to go 31 years to beat you. But the success that we have here, unlike other counties, it's because of those guys before me that have worked with farmers year in and year out since 1917. So for John and Lanny to be here, It's incredible to have these guys and what they did for our county. So talk a bit about ag program. What we do for OSU Extension in Ashtabula County, half is proactive and half is reactive. I can honestly say in 18 years I've never had the same day twice in Extension. Prior to that I taught high school for 5 years, and after 4 or 5 years the routine got pretty set. But in our role in OSU Extension, because we deal with people's problems change from day to day. So part of that proactive is the educational programs that we do. We have our big Northeast Ohio Grape School next week. That's part of a program, whether it be the dairy banquet, whether it be workshops that we're doing, whether it's on-farm research. Those are those things that we're proactively engaging with our farmers to help us. And here's a picture from the last year. And Arnie, we don't want to talk about last year with the grape industry, nor do we want to talk about 2015 with the grape industry. But here is Ahmed Dami, who is in the middle front, and there's Nick Ferrante, of course, dealing with last year's polar vortex and the effect that it had, the damaging effect that it had on our grapes. So we did some workshops on that. Western bean cutworm, do some local research because we are the hotbed. No one knows about really this new corn bug that's out there that's flying around that will lay its eggs on corn, and then it turns into larvae and it eats the corn up and it reduces yields. Well, we've been doing research now for 6 or 7 years here in the county, monitoring this new pest for farmers. And Tony Stalker, right here in the front, was actually one of our local sites last year. Tony, we won't talk about how many bugs were right down the road here, but it's through cooperation with the farmers we're allowed to watch these new emerging insects that are coming into the area. And then if it's one of those crazy things, I just threw some of the crazy, I shouldn't say that they're crazy questions, they're questions that we get here at the office. And you know, how much is land rent for in Ashtabula County? And that's been the hotbed question for the last year, mainly because of Roger Corlett. No, I shouldn't. Roger. and that's because of CAUV taxes. Roger's really good about being made fun of. But land rent in the county, because that's important about what is a fair and equitable charge to charge for land rent. How do I treat hairy heelworts in my dairy herd? Jim, you could probably give a class on that. What regulations I need to set up a vegetable stand? We've even had people call, I have a beef cow and I need to get it bred. Who can I call to be able to do that? Where do I get my soil test results and what do they mean? How many acres of land do I need to pasture goats? How do I set up a nutrient management plan? And does barley straw actually work to control algae in ponds? So you name it. I think if John and Lanny and I put our heads together, we've had some weird questions through the decades here. And of course that leads to fact sheets, and we try to get information out to help folks. And if there's concerns, like we had the nice beautiful orange ladybugs that each of you get in your homes each year, well, they're a direct result of some problems with soybean aphids. And they're here to eat the soybeans aphids, and that's why we see them on our homes. But if there's something special that happens, whether that's white mold in soybeans, we try to bring our state specialists up to assist. Here's the aphids, here's the guys, those little green bugs. That's why the multicolored lady Asian beetles are here, actually to eat those. And when we harvest our soybeans, and then they're smart enough to go find refuge in your homes for the winter so that they're here for the next year. And this was a situation a couple years ago, a situation we don't like to see, where the hail damage came through the south end of the county and really knocked back the corn. The good thing in this situation, the growing point of the corn was still under the ground, so that corn actually came back. And of course, we are the home not only to Cover Bridges and the wine capital of the world, but we're also home to the one of the most dangerous federal noxious weeds, and that's giant hogweed. And of course, that was found here in Ohio, here in Ashtabula County first, and part of our extension outreach effort. I wrote a couple fact sheets working with some researchers from Denmark and Germany because they have a lot more of this. And then we were able to help some local school systems as well as some local landowners with that. And of course, that's what we don't like to see, is the burning effect that this plant will have on your arms. So let's get into Ashtabula County agriculture. With any statistics, our statistics will drag by a couple years because of gathering the data. But year in and year out in Ashtabula County, these numbers and statistics pretty much stay the same. We know that Ashtabula County is the #1 employer here in Ashtabula County, and this was a research study that was done by Dr. Tom Sporleader a few years back, and Dr. Sporleader is a faculty member at The Ohio State University. When you put the food and ag industry as far as employment years, we're right above government, nonprofit, and then health services. And then as we look as far as economic output, no surprise that the #1 industry for economic output for Ashtabula County has been our strength in the chemical and petroleum industry. But when you throw the food and ag sector in there, we're #2 in the county as far as economic output on a year in and year out basis in the county. You might be surprised to know that there's still over 1,000 farms in Ashtabula County. Everyone talks about the decline of the family farm. But literally, we are holding steady, and Lanny, back to your tenure, those numbers were, we probably had a few more as far as the land in acreage. 165,000 acres is pretty typical. We're at between 160 and 165. And that number I would anticipate will decline in 2015, not because the farmers don't want to farm ground. It'll be weather-based. The fact that we can only plant in a certain window, and this year's window, just because of the snow that we've had, will be shortened this year. Average age of the farmer in the county is 57.1 years old. As far as looking at the statistics, this is one thing that has probably changed over the time, that we have basically half of our farmers in Ashtabula County are part-time, depending on which side, part-time or full-time. 46.8% listed as their primary occupation. 83% of our operators are male. The number of female operators in the county and across Ohio continues to increase. The average age, again, is 57.1. The average net income per farm, again, this is net income, is $22,331. So just to understand and appreciate, our farmers are not wealthy people in the county. They do this because of the love and the passion. And one thing that you will notice is that 61%, so almost 2/3 of our family farms, you can see how small they are as far as they have sales less than $10,000. So that's gross sales of sales less than $10,000 per year. Ashtabula County is unique. We can say this, unlike any other county, that we are probably one of the most unique counties across the state when it comes to agriculture. In fact, one of the most diverse counties when it comes to agriculture. Many of my counterparts will deal in one commodity, maybe corn or soybeans, or maybe the livestock industry. But here in Ashtabula County, you name it, we have it, we produce it. We are the largest fruit growing region in the state of Ohio, thanks to our grape growers. So we're #1 in the state in grapes, #3 in oat production, and that was, again, those statistics will lag. Last year's wet spring will drop down to 15th or 16th in the state in oat production just because we didn't get as much planted. I never knew this till looking at the ag census, is that we're #3 in the state in quail production. And we're #11 in milk cows. Traditionally, we've been #10 or 11 in milk cows. #12 in Christmas tree production, and we're 13th as far as the number of equine or the horse industry in Ashtabula County. And one thing that's really cool is we have the longest and the shortest growing season in the state of Ohio, all in the context of one county. So the longest growing season, of course, where we're sitting almost here today through the Harpersfield region, and if you swing down south into that Wayne, Williamsfield, Andover, that becomes the shortest growing season in the state of Ohio. 75% of our water, when it drains to Lake Erie. The other 25% drains to the Ohio River. So there's a lot of cool things that we have here in the county that most folks don't even know are going on. So this diversity means an incredible amount to our producers here, because they can basically follow and produce those commodities or crops that they want to. And so when you look at cows, the dairy cow is probably Jim Comp is here. Is our largest dairy farm in the county, but the dairy industry year in and year out has been, if you had to pick two cornerstones for Ashtabula County, on one cornerstone it's the dairy industry, on the other cornerstone it's the grape industry. But we still have 6,500 cows. If you go back to when Lanny Anderson was hired here in this county, still we were milking 6,500 cows back in the late 60s. The difference there is now that we're milking those 6,500 cows on about 40 dairy farms versus back in 1968, those were on 650 farms here in the county. So the number has changed, but the physical number of cows here in the county has not changed in my lifetime. And then you look at, that's a year in and year out, that's 16, 18. You know, last year was a very good year for the industry, for the dairy industry. So that number, instead of 16 million, is going to be somewhere probably closer to 24, 25 million. And that fluctuates with the milk price. We still have a sizable beef herd in the county, almost 18,000 beef cows. We have some sheep and goats, we have some chickens, and we have some pigs. We don't have any commercial pig farms per se like we used to, but we have a lot of moms and dads in the backyard, and then there's small operations that are raising pigs, poultry, sheep, and goats. And of course, Ashtabula County agriculture is changing. You know, we used to see the very pastoral picture of the cows pasturing out across the entire county. Now we know, as far as cow comfort and consistency as far as feed production. The larger facilities where the cows are in tunnel ventilated barns, or they're laying on sand or water beds, allow them to produce more milk here in the county. And I should say, I don't have a picture of them, but this will be the first year in the history of Ohio that one county will be able to boast that they have the 3 top dairy herds in the state of Ohio. When we get together for those herds that are on test, we will have the top brown Swiss herd, the top Holstein herd, and the top Jersey herd here, all in Ashtabula County, against the 88 counties. So our dairy industry is still strong. The Mayfield Road Creamery, if you haven't eaten their cheese, as far as the Morris's cheese down outside in between Colebrook and Orwell, you need to do that. Here's a picture of Kevin and Susan right there, and this is Peter Dixon. I think it was Arnie Esther. Arnie is here in the crowd, who said when I was hired, he said, "David, how come these dairy farmers aren't making cheese? Why am I buying cheese from Europe to pair with my wine?" And I said, "Arnie, I don't have a good answer for that." So when we had some interest, we flew in Peter Dixon from Vermont. We put on some very successful cheese making programs here in the county. In fact, people from all over the country came to attend in these workshops. We're very, very pleased that the Morris family is now very, very successful in their cheese operation. And just as a little info out there, the second creamery in the county will be coming online here shortly over in Pierpont. So we do have some cheese being produced. There's Peter. And again, if we're making milk here and our wineries are available to do that and use the cheese, nothing is better than pairing some of our local cheese with our local wine and keeping that money here in the county. Of course, here's some beef cows that are out there, very traditional. In Ashtabula County, very small cow-calf herds. I don't think they're any bigger than, I think the average size of our beef herd in the county is at the most 10 brood cows. So 10 mama cows and then their babies. And of course we have locally grown grass-fed beef or corn-fed beef that's being marketed throughout Northeast Ohio. We still have our baby pigs that are around. We have chickens. We have eggs. We have turkeys. We have horses. And we even have fish. You know, the Spieth family with growing their fish on Stanhope Kelloggsville Road and then down on Hayes Road with their hatchery. They're marketing fish throughout the country. And here it is in Ashtabula County, and most people don't even know that exists. As far as crops, as we get away from the livestock side and go to the crops, it used to be it was easy. We would put hay was number one, 36 to 40,000 acres of hay production, because we grow grass in this county, the legal type of grass, really, really well here in Ashtabula County. But notice with what's happened here, soybeans and corn, we've had the last 4 or 5 years have been great for soybean and corn production. So soybeans are actually our leading crop as far as acre-wise. And for those that are trying to conceptualize what an acre would look like, just think the size of a football field. So we have close to 29,000 football fields of soybeans out there across the county. Corn, soybeans, the hay, those are big. Nursery, we still have the nurseries. Fruits and berries, that would include the grapes, oat, and hay, that 25,000 acres. Again, there's about 15 15,000 of acres that have shifted over to corn and soybeans over the last 5 years. And wheat, year in and year out, around 3,000 acres. Then, of course, we have the miscanthus here in the county, which is just about around 4,000 acres. So here's, you want pictures of harvest and pictures that don't look like snow. Here's one of our farmers harvesting soybeans last year. Of course, we have lots of corn production. Lots of industry putting a lot of money into Ashtabula County, and this is Western Reserve's nice big corn receiving facility down in Andover, and Leadership Ashtabula. Yeah, that's you guys. Ashtabula Leadership always goes out to see that. Of course, hay is still one of those stable commodities. If we could just stop it from raining all summer long, we would be more productive in our hay production. And of course, would be remiss without grapes. You know, this whole state's industry, as far as the grape industry, is centered around us here in Ashtabula County, and we should be proud of that. You know, our ice wine, if you just picked up the paper the other day about Chalet Debonnaire winning another ice wine competition out in California. Year in and year out, these guys in this county are putting their wines up against the big boys from California, and we're coming away with winners every time. And of course, Greg Johns is here from our Ashtabula Research Station. We have the university, we have Extension, and also we have our research center, the Ohio Agricultural Research and Development Center. And thanks to Robert and Ross Boggs back in the mid-'80s, they were able to work with the county commissioners on a lease up in Kingsville to have our research station here. And Greg Johns, who's here, Greg, stand up so they know. Greg has been the only manager of that facility since its opening in the mid-'80s, and we're trying to keep Greg from retiring here. But Greg has managed that research facility right here in Ashtabula County for all those years. And Greg, you should be commended for the work that you've done over the years, helping to lead the research program. Of course, we have apples. We have one of the largest black raspberry growers in the state of Ohio that nobody knows about, down in Williamsfield, Ohio. And this young man is actually a student at Ohio State right now. And he started his black raspberry acreage when he was a student at Pymatuning Valley High School, and he was enrolled in the FFA program there. So one of the largest black raspberry farms that nobody knows about, and doing a great job. And most of these berries are going into farmers markets all throughout Northeast Ohio. We have, even though veggies are a hard thing to grow in Northeast Ohio, we have farmers that are really doing a nice job growing vegetables. This is Bruce Vance outside of Jefferson with his farm. Here's Tim Lola growing some of the greens. Of course, we grow green things good here, and our lettuce is cool season crops. Those are the things that we do really well in. These high tunnels that you see popping up allows us to extend the season on both sides, whether that's early in the spring or late in the fall. In fact, there are producers in Northeast Ohio that are still harvesting, even in this kind of winter, harvesting lettuce to take to farmers markets across the region. And right down south to us in Geauga, the wholesale market, where if the guys want to sell their products wholesale, there's a huge wholesale market down in Middlefield. Just unbelievable amount of product that's pulled into that facility that is ending up in Kroger's and Giant Eagles and those different stores across Northeast Ohio. And of course, we're pretty proud of our farmers markets in the different sections of the county. They still are a real nice place. I know especially I see a lot of you at the Sunday market up in the harbor. Excellent market that's there with our producers. We have one of the largest popcorn direct retailers here in Ashtabula County, and that's popcorn. And of course, Nathan was on the front page yesterday with our maple syrup industry. Ooh, it's going to be a little rough year for maple syrup this year, I have a feeling. We're going to see the output down, but we have some great maple syrup producers. We even have hops growing here. So hops is one of the hot items across the state as far as people wanting to learn about how to produce it and grow it. I used to say we grow everything here except for tobacco and cotton. And I had a gentleman from Ashtabula that told me he grows an acre of tobacco every summer here in Ashtabula County. So he and I were having of course he starts it in a greenhouse before he puts it out there, but we actually have, and that was for personal consumption, it wasn't for sale or anything, but we actually have somebody growing tobacco here in Ashtabula County. Of course, there's Ruth Manners from our Christmas tree. Again, we're in the top 15 in Christmas trees. Miscanthus again with the biofuels. Still a great place to grow grass, and miscanthus is growing very, very well here. The challenge that they've come up the last 2 years have been 2 really, really rough winters when they're trying to harvest this, and we have snow piled up out in these fields. So let's talk for a few minutes to keep us on schedule. I want to talk a little bit about the future, because this is where it's really cool. And I think some of you have seen this picture. Farmers have the ability to select the breed of the animal that they produce. So we have select genders. There's my wife kissing a Jersey calf. Well, that was back when this came out. But our dairy farmers, of course, are very, very interested as far as having female calves, because that's what puts the milk in the tank. So we can select our gender. There's new technology, and it's hard to see in this picture, but this is an intelligent sprayer that my colleague Randy Zondag over in Lake County has been working with. And basically, this, instead of going out and spraying chemical as we go through the Great Vineyard, this has the ability with intelligent sensors to turn on and off only when it sees foliage. So it's not spraying in places where the grapevines aren't, especially if there's some skips in that row. It's able to shut it off, conserve those chemicals, and not put it out in the environment. So that's a research project that Randy's working on with some of our researchers from OARDC. And there's an up-close picture. But our grape producers got to see this last summer over at Ferrante's when we were doing our twilight tour. And one of the new things that we haven't seen many of these show up in Ashtabula County, but I was out in Iowa looking at some cover crop research last summer. And then this is not a spray rig that goes through the field, but this is a rig that drives through the cornfields to drop cover crop seeds. And one of those things as we look at conservation and things of working in the future, these implements are able to go through it. And that would be especially important for us here in Ashtabula County, because we're at such a late harvest winter. It is tough to get a cover crop established. So instead you go through the growing crop, drop the seed down there, and the cover crop is there after they harvest the corn. Of course, this was my dad's dream, was to have a robotic milker. And you can just see a couple pictures where the cows actually come. And Jim, I want you to notice what this farmer's doing right there. He's just sitting on a bale of hay, drinking his coffee, because the robots are milking his cow. He doesn't have to worry about anyone milking. We used to say, wow, this would be great if a cow could just walk into a machine, get milked, and all the farmer would have to do, and at that time it was look down at his pager, and the pager would tell him if cow number 300 didn't get milked. Well, now it comes to our smartphones and that. We thought, well, heck, this technology would never get here, where cows actually go into a machine, they get milked themselves, the cows decide when they get milked, and cows will get milked more often because they like getting milked. They'll go get milked more often and produce more milk. And we said, well, we'll never see this in Northeast Ohio. Well, all you have to do is go right down Route 11, right into Trumbull County, and there's a farm that has robotic milkers already milking cows. So that is growing across Ohio. You know, technology, we're always looking at technology, and this was one of those technologies I like to show. This is research that was done in the late, probably around 1999, around in 2000. But this is when the IntelliCoat seed coatings came out. Basically, there was a coating of polymer around the seeds. If you got an early spring, which here in Ashtabula County we never get an early spring, but theoretically you could go out there and plant the crop, and when the soil temperature warmed up enough, the coating would dissolve, the corn would germinate, and away you go. So I always throw that out in any situation. Imagine if you could plant your garden in October, go to Florida, and when you come back, probably in May now, your garden would be up and growing and you wouldn't have to do anything because of the intelligent coat that we have there. Just know that our farmers are worried about, number one, it's about economics, about the money that we're spending, but also about doing good things for the environment. So our farmers are now yield mapping. So the areas in the red, those are the areas that need fertilizer. Those are the areas that might need lime. And if it's in the areas of green, then the equipment will back off and not put as much in those areas. So we're concerned. It's all about precision in the future. Instead of having rows which cross, in the future we can save a lot of money just by, and you can see these rows never cross, but in traditional fields these would cross as they're picking up the planter. In the future those skips won't be there. There may be drone technology, and this won't be Big Brother watching us. This will be farmers watching their crops, doing their scouting, looking for weeds, looking for diseases, looking for patterns. You know, we have farmers already that will get up in an airplane just to fly over their fields, just to see any growth stress that is out there. So there is a stationary winged one, but now they have the little ones that any of us can buy, and now the FAA is relaxing their standards enough to where farmers will be able to use these drones in the future to do a lot of scouting for their crops. Just go to the end of the field instead of walking that field. It's a lot quicker. The only thing that we have trouble with is now it gives us so much data. How do you take that data and process it quickly, in other words, to make decisions? And there's a picture of he's flying his drone, and he's actually getting a live look at that. And now we're getting into equipment that is so complex when it comes to fixing it. And if any of you have tried to read a manual as far as fixing anything, you know the manual, those are usually written in Greek. Well, now with the ability of using Google glasses, this farmer here was working on his combine, talking to the engineer that built that combine out in Iowa. And the engineer in Iowa was able to see the entire combine because he had his Google glasses on, and what was showing up on his computer in Iowa was his piece of equipment. So this stuff is right there. And the biggest concern, and one of the things that you see out there, is the phosphorus issue. Senate Bill 1 just passed. There's Senate Bill 16 and a House Resolution 61. Which is addressing this phosphorus issue that is in the Western Basin, which is out here as far as that toxic algae. All of you heard about the city of Toledo shutting down their water supply, and that was a cause of this algae. One good thing, look it over here. And our farming is different in Northeast Ohio. Our buffers are different. So what's going on in Western Ohio will definitely make a play here and on us in Northeast Ohio. One of the bills that's being considered right now is that there will be a ban of manure that will be spread on snow-covered ground, and farmers won't be able to apply any fertilizer or manure when there's a 50% chance of rain in the forecast or the top 2 inches of the soil is saturated. So our concern is why that might work for Western Ohio, who has very little livestock industry. I would challenge our legislators to think about how many days last year could our farmers been out working on their fields in those conditions. And I would think that answer I could have on less than one hand for last year. So if the ban comes through like that, that will definitely have an adverse effect on the way that our livestock producers here in Ashtabula County are able to operate. And here's Roger, that's the picture. But Roger has been actually, I should say, about one of our pressing issues, of course, is the tax issue with current agriculture use valuation. And I joked about Roger, but let me tell you, no other auditor in the state actually went to their people last summer, to their farmers, and said, you know, guys, this formula is going to trigger a 300% increase on your farm taxes. Prepare for it now. This meeting was in August. You know what the other auditors in other counties that I work in said? We hope they don't realize it until they get their bill in January. But because of Roger's foresight and working with Farm Bureau and working with Extension, we were able to put these meetings on. And I can tell you personally on our farm, we put the extra money aside last July instead of making some equipment updates that we needed to, just to make sure that we could cover the property tax. So Roger has been really out front and working with Dr. John Patterson as far as a task force, as far as providing input out across the state of Ohio on how we can help alleviate some of the wrinkles that are in that formula that would work out better in the future. I used to throw this in there because I was complaining about gas prices, but here it is, $1.81, and we're at $2 something now. But energy is one of those things that we'll continue to look about. And then the energy, and here's what we want to see in the future is more local food being used and produced. This is Nate Fagnelli, who did a nice locavore lunch for us up in Geneva on the Lake for a group that we were taking out, trying to encourage school systems to buy locally, to buy more product from our local farmers within, whether that's for the school lunch program or whether that's for special events that they're using at their schools. We see opportunities for farmers and schools to collaborate. We see opportunities for farmers and restaurants to collaborate, and basically taking out the middleman and helping on both sides. And Mark Winchell from the Visitors Bureau, Mark has been like the local champion for locavores. And again, we want to continue to see those opportunities where products are being used. We had the opportunity, these just look like normal folks, and they are normal people, but they happen to be from Denver, happen to be from Portland, Oregon. These were chefs of a major restaurant that was coming into Cleveland to build, and that was the new Westin that is now open for operation in downtown Cleveland. And the chefs came out, we took them around to local farms, and now there's me eating in the Urban Farmer in Cleveland, which one of the coolest things when you walk in is that they have the pictures of the farmers throughout Northeast Ohio that they're resourcing their food from. And a couple of those up on that list are right here from Ashtabula County. So it's really neat that they're sourcing, not all their food, because that would be, you couldn't do that. But they are sourcing special events, whether that's acorn-fed pork, which is raised right outside of Jefferson, whether that's using cornmeal that is produced right outside of Jefferson, or whether that's a grass-fed beef, which is coming from Kinsman, Ohio, or local eggs from anywhere. They're using that in the restaurants, and that's what we hope to see. And there's some of the local food on the plate. And that gives you a little bit about Ashtabula County agriculture, and I know we're up at 9, but maybe a couple questions, and then we'll, if anyone has questions about Ashtabula County agriculture. Yes?
Dave, can Ashtabula County's road infrastructure handle modern farm equipment? Or is it adequate for modern farm equipment?
You know, that is a great question, Kevin, because the question was, can our road system handle today's modern equipment? I will tell you, in agriculture, we are to the point where we're across Ohio, we are too big for the road structure that we have. So I didn't show that here. We've gotten bigger, and faster. We're able to cover more ground. We're at the point where we're now almost to the point where we're too big. So all the engineers that are out there that we've talked to from John Deere and other places, now in the future, it's not going to be about big. It's going to be about small and quick. So instead of that big 300-horse tractor out in that field, in the future what you'll see, and will this be in my career, I don't know, but what they are anticipating is they're going to go back to 50-horse tractors, small tractors that don't even look like tractors, really small implements that are being pulled behind them. But instead of a farmer being on the seat of that tractor, the farmer's going to be on the seat at the end of the field running 4 or 5 of these tractors from a remote location with no drivers on the tractor. If that's where they're going. As far as now we've gone as big, but now we're going to come back to where in the future you're going to see unmanned vehicles in the fields operating actually. Yes, John.
David, there's a tremendous amount of misinformation out there about genetically modified food crops. And you haven't said anything about those. We know they're here. You got any reaction to that whole situation?
Yeah, I didn't want to open that can of worms today, John.
Already open.
Yeah, you know, genetically modified organisms, GMO, and I think as a farm public, one of the things that we've probably done a disservice to ourselves is that when we say genetically modified organism, what comes to the most typical consumer's mind? Frankenstein and these weird kind of things. What basically they've done through genetic modification is speed up what Mendel did with the cross hybridization, where we're hybridizing products. Basically, the term genetically modified organism is a bad term. Basically what we're doing is making it more efficient and probably better for our environment to grow these. For instance, talk about genetically modified as much as you want, but we're inserting genes. I showed the western bean cutworm that we're tracking throughout Northeast Ohio. There is a gene that can be spliced and already is there, basically, that will make the corn plants resistant to the damage that these western bean cutworms have. But the farmers, why we are monitoring it, why would you pay for that to kill that when it's not at an economic threshold? So we have the ability to speed up the hybridization of crops to make them more, I guess you would say, immune or better adaptive to corn or to insects, to diseases, and other things that we may see out there. But I don't think we're talking in the right language when we do that. But what those genetically modified organisms allow us to do is, if we're killing insects especially, there's two ways to control the insect. You can let the plant kill it, or we can go out there with insecticides and kill it. And I think the research will show that environmentally, when we're not using insecticides, we're doing a greater service to the environment by not having the insecticide use out there. So that's a whole, John, that could be a discussion of a whole topic here. Other questions? If you do have questions, there's the information. We're not going anywhere, and we're at 39 Wall Street. There's my email information as well as our phone number. If you would like to get more information about Extension and the programs that we're doing, whether that's in 4-H, Family Consumer Sciences, or in agriculture, all you have to do, we have a brand new website. We finally got to the point where you can pull it up on your phone and actually click through it without much hassle. So if you have questions about programs we're doing, you can go to there for that link. Thanks for having me.